Right. Okay. So I'm just recording a video because we've got a shitload going on at behind the scenes at Blockmates and stuff. So I think this is the quickest way to do it. Although the research going into doing this probably makes it just as long as right now. But yeah, just wanted to get something out. That was a little bit easier for me to publish. So I think this is a better format to do it in. And basically, I've just been following what's been going on at Trader Joe with their new liquidity book, and it seems like, particularly since the Arbitrum launch, when they've deployed on Arbitrum, everything seems to have ticked up, and people are beginning to realize the benefits of it. It's a great kind of user experience. It still is a little bit confusing, and we'll get into that in a little bit more detail in a bit. But yeah, so it's been an interesting one because Joe's obviously been around for a long time. Launched on Avalanche, was the kind of darling child of Avalanche during the whole Avalanche rush thing, and did extremely well. But the likes of 3SC and Alameda were farming the hell out of it, plus a lot of other funds. So the token kind of got destroyed because it had that kind of sushi V2 style tokenomics and was, it just allowed people to deploy a shit ton of capital and then just farm the token to death. They tried to flip it to stake Joe or SJoe, where you could deposit your Joe and then earn stables instead of earning additional Joe tokens. But rented liquidity is a big issue. There's a lot of protocols trying to figure that out. Tapioca are going to try and crack it with the options airdrops and giving people the option to buy the token as opposed to just giving away the token for free and stuff. But that's kind of another story and kind of been pretty well documented on our end. So, but basically, I just want to get into the liquidity book, just the basics. I'm still figuring out some more complex strategies, which I'll try and update as soon as I kind of figure them out. I'm just playing around with a reasonably sized Arbitrum USDC position, but then just trying to figure out some more kind of complex yield generating strategies for different kind of market environments with just like nominal amount of capital. So we'll get into it. Only other things, probably we'll follow up with a couple of well-performed projects. We'll probably double up on Joe because Joe's performing extremely well because people are beginning to realize that. ARBs obviously perform quite well, and then just having a look at what the charts are saying there. Then some kind of echo plays on Joe, which I'm kind of kicking myself, and you'll see why later. And then there's a few other tokens as well that will be performing well. Just want to bring them up. And then tomorrow it'll be when April comes around, then we're just going to be looking at what big catalysts are coming up for a couple of other projects like Redacted and Gelato and a couple of LSD players and what that means and stuff. And then a couple of things I'm hearing through the grapevine, as it were. And then just going to have a brief look at the current positions that got open. So we'll get into it. I mean, as I say, you can watch this back. You should be able to just click the link in the Patreon and find the full link to watch the video back. I'll probably make it public in a couple of days, but I just wanted to get it out to you guys first and just have this as more of a journal as opposed to kind of sitting down and writing for hours and hours on end. Right, where are we at? So yeah, Trader Joe's liquidity book is effectively a take on concentrate liquidity. Just like a brief bit of background. I believe the original V1 of Trader Joe was actually a fork of Sushi, which in turn was a fork of Uniswap. An additional kind of emissions contract built on top of it, but that's not what we're trying to get here. It's the original version of Uni V2, and Trader Joe was you come to the exchange, they want to provide liquidity, and then you effectively only have the choice of supplying two assets in a kind of 50-50 kind of counterpart. So you'd come with, I don't know, say if Joe's $1 and you want to supply 1,000 Joe, then you obviously have to pair that up with $1,000 of USDC. So it's like a 50-50 pair. And if you just have a look at what that meant, effectively the way that the bonding curve works and how price is set, it works on the X times Y equals K bonding curve, and definitely was one of the most important kind of inventions and pieces of code that was written, because it seems like every project in the dog has a DEX now, but I think it's seemingly it's becoming the inferior model because of concentrated liquidity, and I'll get into why that is in a second. But if you can look at this left curve here, when you're providing your assets in a 50-50 pairing, like on UniV2 or the old Trader Joe or currently Sushi Swap, or the majority of the dexes out there at the minute that aren't using concentrated liquidity, what you're effectively saying is you're providing liquidity from 0 all the way down here to infinity. So your assets are effectively spread out from 0 to infinity, which, if you use a very, very basic example of USDT and USDC, the vast majority of the trading occurs around the $1 range, or like obviously fluctuates and fluctuated down to quite a serious level recently. But as you said, 99% of trading occurs around that $1 range. So what's the point of having liquidity spread out across to the 0 and all the way to infinity? It's just idle capital that's not earning any fees. It's effectively no use to anyone. And obviously that helps a little bit more if it's a volatile pair, but still 0 to infinity is still a very, very capital inefficient way of doing it. So UniV3 comes around and they say, well, we understand that the extremes of the curve are a little bit useless in most regards. So what they allow liquidity providers to do is then come and say, well, if we use kind of ETH at 2000 for like an arbitrary number, let's hopefully it gets there in a couple of days, but if we use ETH is trading at 2000, what we'd be able to do is then come and say, well, I only want to supply liquidity of ETH USDC at a range of 1500 to 2500. So any trading that occurs between the 1500 level, the 1500 price point and the 2500 price point, then you're eligible to be earning those trading fees. So if you take that a step further, then, but if you were trying to be a little bit clever about it, you could actually deploy between the 1900 to the 2100 range, or as tight or as widespread as you feel necessary. Obviously, the closer you get to the price point, then all your capital is going to be concentrated around that specific range. So you've got a larger amount of capital earning more fees. And again, like the reverse of that is the more spread out you are and the wider your range is, then you've got capital spread across the full curve. So depending on where it's actually trading and between what prices or what ticks, then obviously you've got lesser and lesser amounts of capital that are earning these trading fees. So using the 1500 and 2500 example with a $2,000 ETH, if, for example, let's actually take a back step. If the way that the LP will work, right, you think about it like this: you're being a market maker, you're not being a yield farmer. This is one of the common issues that a lot of people face, is they deposit liquidity, don't fully understand the dynamics of being an LP. And your job as a market maker or an LP, no matter where you are, is to provide liquidity to the market. So if someone wants to buy, then you have to be there to sell. If someone wants to sell, you have to be there to buy. So let's say the easiest way that I always think about it is, depending on what the two assets you're holding are, if it's ETH USDC, for example, whatever the strongest performing asset is, you're gradually going to be holding less of that if that continues to be the strongest asset, and vice versa. So in an LP, if you set it, well, regardless of what range you set it at, the stronger performing asset over a course of time is the one you're going to be holding less of in that LP. And all that is because you've provided ETH USDC, people come along, they want your ETH, so the price of ETH is driving up, whatever's happening in the market's driving the price of ETH up. So what they're doing is coming to the liquidity pool, depositing dollars in, you're taking their dollars and they're taking your ETH. And it's the same on the reverse. When the worst performing asset out of the two, ETH is crashing down, then people are obviously coming to the liquidity pool and depositing their ETH and taking your USDC. So yeah, you're constantly taking the opposite side of the trade, which sounds bad. But what you're hoping is, obviously things just don't go up in a straight line. They kind of fluctuate up and down over the course of time, and gradually churn upwards or downwards. And all the time that it is kind of fluctuating in between prices, that's obviously trades that are happening, and you're earning fees. So you ideally want enough volume and enough fees that offset the price depreciation or appreciation, so that you're in the green over time. So yeah, I won't get into impermanent loss. Well, actually, I'll cover it a little bit. So basically, impermanent loss is being an LP is not for kind of a couple of days stint. It should be like a kind of semi-managed or actively managed position over quite a long duration of time, because you need it's very, very long tailed, and you obviously want a longer duration to incur enough fees that will offset any kind of impermanent loss or whatever have you. So so on that, you've got to kind of weigh up if you want to hold an ETH USDC position or an ARB USDC position, as opposed to just holding ARB or dollars naked. So effectively, and the example we'll get onto in a minute is like ARB USDC, would it be better to just hold ARB at the minute as it's ripping, or would it be better to provide liquidity, earn all the fees because there's quite high volume coming in, but then also kind of weigh up the other side of it, where you might as well just hold it kind of bare and just allow it to kind of ride up or down. But if you think it's going to be in a range for it, and you're not necessarily bothered of how long it takes to actually reach that price point, and you set it at a specific range, then give it a try. But as I say, we'll get into it now. So getting back to like Trader Joe and Liquidity Book, they've looked at UniV3 and said, yeah, it's good, but there's definitely some ways that you can improve upon it. So they have these things called bins. So it's effectively along the curve in between specific ranges, you can deposit capital across a series of bins. So, and the bins are defined by whatever the fee tier is on that specific pool. So if it's like, let's bring up the pools, for example. So to make an example of it, there's an ARB USDC pool here for 0.2. So every time there's a trade, 0.2% of that is distributed to the LPs at that specific range. And there's also an ARB 0.8. So again, that's a 0.8% fee. If you kind of weigh them both up, there's definitely more volume coming from the 0.2 pool, which obviously makes sense, but traders want a cheaper fee for every time they trade. But the liquidity is also higher at the 0.8 range, so it's liquidity providers want the higher fee structure. So the way I'd kind of look at it is, well, it obviously calculates an APR off the back of this. So fees are coming in at like 224%, plus rewards at 227%. So so ideally you want low liquidity, high volume. And if you were just looking at it, I posted it in the Telegram earlier. If you just search by volume, and then have a look at liquidity, obviously ARB ETH's quite high. You've effectively got a 3.5 kind of ratio between volume and liquidity there. And what I was looking at earlier was where's it at? Was this? It's actually went up quite a lot. So the Radiant ETH pool. So there's only $1 million worth of liquidity, but there's been $3 million worth of trading volume. So over the past 24 hours, that's spat out quite handsome rewards on it. And there's another Radiant pool that's just gone live. I'm not sure what that is. I think they've just deployed a new token or something. So this has had $820,000 worth of volume in the last 24 hours, whereas there's only 123,000 worth of liquidity. So like getting in close to like a 6.5%, 7 kind of ratio between the two. So these are good ways to kind of spot them. Obviously you want high volume to drum up a lot of fees, but it's a delicate balance between volume and liquidity, because you want to be owning the lion's share of the liquidity, because every time a fee comes in or a trade comes in, then you have to share that fee or the trading fee with the majority of people in the pool. So there is a golden ratio between the two. And if it's going up to like upcoming catalysts and things like that, and you expect there to be like high amounts of volume, and then that could indicate there'd be a good potential buy there. The ARB USDC 0.2 is pretty good. As I say, that's $7.7 million worth of volume in the last 24 hours, and only 1.7 million worth of liquidity. So lots of volume, lots of fees being shared by not a drastic amount of people, if that makes sense. So let's have a look. Let's click through that. The ARB USDC 0.2 pool. So I've just got let me bring up my other account. So I've just got a little small amount of ARB and USDC in here. So there's 452 ARB and $63 worth of USDC. So in a really simple format, you've got these things called shapes. So you've got spot, which is effectively being able to set the range, and it's distributed evenly. Curve is obviously more of a kind of concentrated around the specific price at that point, and then lesser and lesser amounts of capital away from the current price point. So you got a bid and ask, and you've got a wide. So like where would you use these? So spot, this one gives you the most flexibility. So if you wanted to kind of, I don't know, deploy 100 ARB and 50 USDC spot, and then you've kind of got the capability of playing around. So what's the current price? Current price 1.38 at the minute, right? So let's let me just remove this liquidity. Actually, should playing around with it earlier. Super quick on Arbitrum as well, which is great. So yeah, let me just refresh that. Right, that seems better. So we'll go with the spot liquidity shape first. This one gives you, as I say, most customizability and flexibility. So if we want to deploy like, I don't know, $100 USDC and let's say 138 ARB, 100 of each. Obviously, if ARB's price is 138 or whatever it is now, that's going to be $138, and that's obviously going to be $100. So what's good to know as well is because of the V2, you don't have to deploy a 50-50 amount. You can deploy as much ARB or as little ARB, and as much USDC or as little USDC. And in some instances, you can actually just deploy single-sided. And I'll show you that in a second, but it begins to look like a limit order book then. But I'll cover that in a sec. So, but all we're doing here, 100 ARB, $100 USDC, and then we come down to the price range. So we know it's at 138 at the minute, which picks it up in this tab here, but you can always just check. So let's say I'm comfortable deploying the capital between, I don't know, let's take a look anyway. Maybe we want to go for like between 128 and the highs there of 145. Or if we zoom out a little bit, it might give us a bit better understanding. So let's remove that one. Let's go out of the highs. So 160 and 128. And then all I do here is lower range 128, high range 160. That creates 112 bins. As I say, the wider your range, the more bins you're going to have, because this one's at a 0.2. So if you didn't want to do that, obviously what it does here is, because it's such a wide range, is it creates them in batches. So you've got this 128 range to 156, and then this 156 to 160 range. So if we tighten that up a little bit, let's have a look. what we were originally going to do. So let's take these two levels here. It's 149 and I don't know, just below that, so we don't get knocked out. And I'll say what that means in a minute. So 129 and 148. Right. So 159 and 48. So it'd be as simple as just 69 bins. We add liquidity, really simple. You will have, the first time you do it, you will have to approve like both tokens. But and then I'll do is hit refresh. Right. So what it's done here is $136 worth of ARB and then $50. I must have typed the wrong number in. So basically what's coming up here is this is the range that I'm deploying the liquidity in. So obviously on the downside, below the spot price, it's all USDC. So effectively, if you think about it like this, as the ARB price decreases, all this USDC liquidity is going to be scooping it up. So every time someone comes in and trades, they're going to be trading their ARB for your USDC. Then on the flip side, as ARB continues to move up, where your ARB is distributed along this curve, it's going to be selling all the way up. So you can kind of think about it as like, if we remove this liquidity, it might make a little bit more sense. So this is when it starts to look like an order book or a method of DCAing on chain effectively. And the beauty of doing that is because you're actually deploying liquidity, you're earning like fees around a specific price point, and there is no trading fees incurred when you're actually supplying liquidity. So if you were using this as a range to actually sell into or buy into, like on a dollar cost average basis, particularly if you're doing it at size, then it's a way to kind of enter a position without kind of facing any ridiculous slippage or whatever have you. There was someone in the Discord saying they'd kind of DCA'd like 7 figures into something that was like extremely liquid. So if anyone's looking for that kind of thing, it's obviously a good way of doing it. So if we do this again, so like 136 and I don't know 150 or whatever. So minimum range 136, maximum range 150. So I'm going to supply in this case a little bit more ARB than, so 200 ARB and maybe like $20 worth of USDC. So what I'm saying here is I'm happy to sell my ARB up to $1.50, and I'm happy to be the buyer of ARB down to 1.36, but I've only got $20 worth to buy, whereas I've got 200 ARB to sell. So it might make a little bit more sense when I show this on the actual. Not a fan of this renewed thing on MetaMask as well. First time I saw it, I thought it was a scam. Right then. Yeah, so this makes a lot more sense. So as I say, between my lower band of 1.36 and my upper band of 1.49, so you can see here it's actively trading in this bin now because it's green and a purple, so there's trading fees happening between here. I'm scooping up every time someone trades in this bin. So all the way down below this, my USDC is effectively buying ARB. Anything above this price, my LP is getting more and more USDC as people come along all the way up the price curve, and then the ARB is getting sold into it. You could deploy just ARB or just USDC at, like, let's say it's at 138 now. You could say deploy a shit ton of USDC in one bin at, like, let's say this 135 level. So let's say you did, I don't know, using this example, whatever's remaining 86, at that specific range at 135, one bin. So at the same price, if you have one bin, it's obviously the same price. Approve USDC. What that's going to do? It's effectively you're putting a limit order in. Like you're happy to buy $86.76 at 1.35 because it's at one bin, and you'll add liquidity. Hopefully this shows up nice on the chart. Let me just hit refresh. Yeah. So what you've done now is that's the previous bin that we've met. The previous range that we've deployed. So this is the beauty of it. You could be as you can customize it as much as possible with lots of different strategies in it. So you'd be happy to sell ARB all the way up here, slowly DCA out. DCA out on the way up and then DCA in on the way down. There's a gap here where we haven't set any range, and then you're saying you're a buyer at 135, if that makes any sense. As I say, you can get as smart or as dumb as you want with these. There's a full liquidity strategies page on Trader Joe. I'll put in the description. There's a couple of explainers and walkthroughs that Blue and Davide did from Trader Joe, which are good. I think they're up on YouTube as well. So I'll link them below. So that's the spot. So as I say, you could deploy multiple different. Effectively, what you could do there is like similarly how we've just deployed that $86 at the 1.35 range. So if it hits 1.35, we're going to be buyers of ARB. So what you could do there is you could actually set another limit order here, another limit order here with, I don't know, you could kind of scale it down. So instead of $86, this might be $50, this might be $40, this might be $30, and then you can kind of basically set a ladder using the spot shape on here. So I'll remove all this now. But yeah, it's quite impressive. It's one of those that you can read about as much as you want or listen and watch, but it's always best just taking $100 or so and then just try and playing around with it. Doesn't want to remove it anyway. I can get into this anyway. So curve, as I say, this hasn't been working for me, so I think they're doing something with it. They did mention something like this, that they were going to play around with it, but effectively, as you can imagine, this is the vast majority of liquidity is supplied at the specific price point, and then lesser and lesser as the price kind of fluctuates. They have said, and it obviously makes a lot of sense, that this would be a very short-term strategy. If you're expecting a lot of volatility around, I don't know if it's coming into support and resistance, or it's sitting in a very tight range, but there's a lot of volume, then this would be good. But I wouldn't leave this unmonitored for longer than, I don't know, an hour, 30 minutes, because it could fluctuate out. I suppose that's good to mention, actually. So what happens if it goes out of your range? So same as Uni V3. Effectively, let's say we've got ARB USDC here, then and let's say it's between 1.35 and 1.49, and the price actually goes to 1.34. So think about it this way: the closer and closer you get to the lower end, the more ARB you're going to have, because people are coming, the ARB price is dropping. People are coming to the pool, depositing their ARB in. You're getting more ARB, and they're taking your USDC out. So if it goes below 1.35, all it does is it knocks you out of your LP position and just puts you solely into the worst performing asset out of the pair. And the same for the top end. So what's interesting is, similar to how we said it's like a limit order on the way down and the way up, or like a stop loss. This is a way that you could. The way I think about it on the way up is it's like a take profit, right? So if this is like our range is 1.35 and 1.49, getting gradually closer to the 1.49, end of the range, then by the time we get into that and cross over that, USDC is the worst performing asset. All your ARBs effectively bought out, and it just knocks you purely into USDC. But it's a way to kind of gradually ladder out of a position until that price point, and then it actually knocks you out of the LP. So the thing is, if you're happy for that, then that's great. If that's like a set and forget strategy for you, you're like, I'm going away at the weekend. If it hits this price, just want to take profit. That's great. All the way up, you'll have been earning fees. But obviously, as soon as it knocks it out, you're just in a naked asset, so you're not earning any fees. It will still technically be in an LP position, which is funnily enough. So if you were away, say for the weekend, and it started trading at like 1.45 and it's out of your range, and then it comes back to Monday and you're gonna like thinking about removing it, and then the price drops back into range, then you're gonna start earning fees again. So that's the difference between kind of your V1s and V2s of the world, where you could effectively hold. You don't have a range, do you? So you're effectively at the whims of whatever the price swing is, like regardless. But if you do set a range, you can effectively take on a single asset depending on if it knocks it out or in. Same for the other side. So just be aware of that. If it's something you're going to use to your advantage, then that's great. And as I say, as soon as it comes back in range, you're going to be making those trading fees as well. Bid and ask. I think you'd use this for like if we look at ARB, for example, now, if we think it's just going to kind of ping pong between this range, then you could set it for 1.29 and 1.48. If you think it's going to be quite aggressive between those ranges, so you'd be line share of your capital at support, and then your line share capital at resistance, and then in between you're earning less and less. You could equally just do it on the spot, where you're earning consistently across the full range. But if you think about it, if you think the most amount of trading is going to be done at support or at resistance on the other side of the range, then which obviously makes a lot of sense. Support and resistance, major bid levels and bid ask levels. So that's why it's called that, and that's why you can set up quite a simple structure doing that. Again, you could set up, I don't know, 80% of your capital in this bid ask range. So you're earning at the peripheries of the range where support and resistance are, and that's probably how I'd use it. And then you could also deploy a spot on top of that with the remaining 20% of your capital and make it really, really concentrated around this range, so you can get as clever or as stupid with it as you want. And yeah, and wide's like a predefined range. It's definitely the most simple one to do. If you're getting a little bit confused with it and you're not kind of up to setting your own lower and upper range, then wide is definitely where you want to go, because it's going to set you quite a large range. Let's actually see what it sets it at now. Let's see. Hopefully this is letting me remove. I think that's worked. Right. Yeah. So if we set wide now, that's 100 ARB, 100 USDC. Please. So as I say, this will set a predefined range based on what it thinks is acceptable. This is definitely more of the most passive out of the four. There is another one that's even more safe, but I'll get into that in a second. Time is at 1:45. Right, I'll have to rush through the end. Yeah, so this is set at 1.31 to 1.45. So that's kind of the range that it's predefined in. With spot, as you'll well know, we could go and set this even wider. So we could set this down at like something stupid like 1.2 or 1.5. So it could you could definitely have it even wider, but if you're a little bit unsure, I think the wide option is the easiest to go about doing. There are analytics pages as well. As I say, $11 million worth of volume, 24 grand's worth of fees, which is great, and only $1.8 million worth of capital. So my actual large positions in the 0.8 pool. So I'm going to shift this over after this little tutorial type thing. Bins traded, like where the most active bins, so obviously around this 1.38 price point. So you could actually have a look at this and consider where you want to set So this would kind of be like mini support and resistances, and you could set a bid ask in between that if you wanted to. Just get as clever or stupid with it as you want. Keep an eye on volume. Obviously, you want to see increase in volume. I think we will with ARB, but yeah, if anyone comes up with or finds any interesting strategies, let me know. As I say, I'm still trying to come up with some interesting ways to use it. I'm just kind of playing around with it at the beginning. Just got quite a. I'm using this. I'm using spot at the minute on the larger position between. I can't remember the numbers, but it's not too far off what this actual wide preset is anyway. So, but yeah, let me know if you figure out anything interesting on that. Assets perform well. ARB obviously looks like it's having a little cool off now. We'll see, but I'm happy because I'm just earning fees. Just sat on this 58 MA or whatever it is, and then let's have a look. Joe's been obviously ripping, which is great. Look at that. And this is just people are becoming really profitable off Liquidity book, and also the UniV3 license runs out apparently in April or May, so it's already got a head start on concentrated liquidity, whereas the rest of the market will probably be scrambling to kind of pull that together as soon as that goes live. We'll probably see the 50-50 pools completely die out. So you have to look at things like, well, I suppose that leads me on to the next point actually. You've got to think about because this is quite complex, right? It's not like an idiot can't just, well, they can with this wide section, but they're still probably going to get knocked out at some point on either side of the range. But the issue is people just want to kind of set and forget. So the likes of Arrakis and even Popsicle, I don't know what those guys have got going on. It's congrats to Mantra. I think he was buying. It's gone 10x over the past couple of weeks, which is kind of mental. But like these liquidity management protocols on top of UniV3 and even Joe, there is one called Stake Hut, which I'm really kicking myself about now because mentioned it last night in Discord, and it's absolutely pathetic. It's gone from up like 46% on the day. It might be worth a little position. Liquidity is terrible though, so you can't actually get a decent buy-in. But yeah, as I said, that's like the echoes of Joe Stake, and I don't know what VTX is doing. I've still got some locked. Very lazy with it. I haven't really yeah, so it looks like it wants to go. These own a shitload of Joe, so that makes a lot of sense. Again, Mantra picking out some absolute gems again, but this could move as well. So yeah, echoes of Joe, if that makes any sense. Yeah, and LVL, I seen this week had been doing well. God knows what those guys are doing, but let's take a quick look. Looks like it's going to roll over. I'm not too interested in that. But yeah, anything that's kind of around this concentrated liquidity narrative, Gamma Swap as well, that could be a big one. It looks like it's going to be launching at the perfect time. Don't know if that's planned or not, but probably is none those lot. April wants to watch. So I had the pleasure of meeting the Redacted guys in Dubai recently. They're very, very excited about Dinero. They obviously just need to wait for Shanghai to go live. But they're effectively done, ready to go. I know there was some kind of cryptic tweet in that they were doing recently. So just basically in this accumulation range, I think down to like this. I mean, I'd love to see it at 250 just to buy a little bit more, but I'm just happy to hold on to this for the kind of foreseeable going into that. Some of the other LSDs, I know Lido, I think they own like 33% of the liquid staking supply or liquid staking market share, and they're not going to be ready until May. So their contract actually needs to, and their protocol needs to go through an upgrade to be ready for withdrawals. So people saying Shanghai is going to be like a sell the news. Don't know how much I agree with that, but we'll see. One of the largest liquid staking providers isn't going to be ready till May, so maybe we get an extra couple of months of prolonging that out. What else did I have here? Yeah, so I mentioned Gelato again. What it's doing. It'll probably be a little bit flat. I mean, over a longer period, it looks like it's slowly grinding upwards. And the only thing is, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see it head to these levels, but I think Arrakis is nearly ready for its token, just from kind of a few people I've spoke to. Gelato is obviously very closely related to Arrakis. And with all this kind of concentrated liquidity shit going on, and also they're doing they're in partnerships with Gnosis Safe, one of the biggest smart contract wallet providers, to kind of lean into this EIP 4337 and account abstraction. They're actually kind of deploying contracts on Coinbase L2 at the minute and testing stuff like that out. So I think these guys have got a lot going on. It's one of those charts where it's just like, it's kind of stupid, really. Like, they're one of the biggest infrastructure providers in the whole space, probably only second to someone like a Chainlink or whatever. So every single protocol you use day to day has probably got some automation or some kind of gasless transaction that's powered by Gelato. So might be a little bit of a slow burner because it's not exactly sexy, particularly looking at the chart, but it's one of those charts where definitely better to buy sooner rather than when it starts to pump, because liquidity is not great. So yeah, and a couple of people talking about Pendle as well. Rocketpool user got fished for like 1.7 million last night, so did put there might be a good buy, but I don't know. Let's have a look what it's doing. I could have been completely wrong there, but so yeah, it would have been a good buy. So what's that? Obviously, you never bought the bottom wick, but if we just go for it and pretend we did, a 10% move. So yeah, I think Rocketpool is poised for a good little run. As I said, a couple more on the rumor mill. Like Gamma Swap is close. The Ruckus token, very, very close, I can imagine. Dinero, near enough done. Just needs to wait for Shanghai. There are a lot of protocols that you might have seen, like Sushi getting subpoenaed. There's a lot more that have been sent these letters that haven't gone public just yet on it. If it could take anything away from the conference in Dubai, it was that there's a lot of projects that are up in sticks and moving to jurisdictions like Dubai and places like that, and getting out of the US and North America and even sometimes Europe as well. I think CZ's actually set up there himself, so I think it's going to be a real hub of activity and a lot of people over there that are building cool shit. So yeah, and I seen Emery posted about this earlier. It was quite funny. The Sushi CEO feels uninspired after the subpoena from the regulators. So it was Emery actually posted that he'll be inspired for $1 million a year or whatever it was, which I thought was quite funny. But the only other point, just to kind of wrap up basically what we've been talking about, is I can imagine the day the UniV3 business license, which prevents anyone from using their code base or any patented UniV3 concentrated liquidity in their protocols, as soon as that license expires, which is a matter of weeks, I think it is now, I can imagine the same day it expires that Sushi will launch their concentrated liquidity AMM. So Matt from Tapioca has hinted at this a few times. Obviously don't know any more than that or any less than that, but it'd just be in traditional Sushi tradition to actually launch that the day of the UniV3 license expiring. So keep an eye on that as well. And then positions open, just ARB, and obviously the ARB USDC spot, which I'm going to swap over to the 0.2 pool now. Lit, just happy to hold that. Not getting too hot and bothered about fluctuations in the market. Bottom gel off the back of what I think they're doing and the whole Arrakis narrative and things like that. Joe, because it's just outperforming everything. Some more butterfly, some X-Grill that I forgot I bought at launch and it's been locked, so that's doing particularly well. Hero, you've seen Anatoly Solana, co-founder, speaking very, very highly of Hero recently. I think it's finally going to have its day in the sun, which is great. because I'm locked for like 4 years. So that's a bit of a pain in the arse if that one doesn't come off. And then again, as I was saying, the VTX that's been locked, being very, very lazy about. So I'm going to go and check out what's actually happening over there and try and delegate and get some fees. And yeah, that's about it. If you like this, just let me know. If you want me to get back to writing so I'm not annoying everyone over video even more, then just let us know. If you could do us a favor and just if you haven't already, just subscribe to the newsletter. It helps us a lot. Basically, to let you guys know, it's completely free. It always will be. Basically, what the model is there is if we can get like several thousand people on the newsletter, we can just start to reach out to potential like fit-in advertisers. Obviously, they won't be shit or anything, but it just helps like us trying to grow a business that we can get some ad revenue from the newsletter and things like that. And similarly with YouTube, if you could just hit subscribe and stuff like that as well, helps us out a lot. Again, nothing to sell you. Just helps us if we can go out to advertisers. It's the nature of the beast. But yeah, give me a shout if you need anything. I was around, and I'll see you in Discord.